off, and it has everything to do with what firefighter Lance Jimenez just said on the witness stand. We're currently on a 10-minute break. They removed the jury from the courtroom, and all the attorneys are speaking to the judge, and let me tell you why. So Lance Jimenez had said he responded to Kid Cudi's home in January of 2012, and when they arrived, they had seen exactly what we saw in the images. He said the Porsche was parked close to the garage, and he witnessed the fact that the roof was cut up and the inside of the car was slightly burned. There was a bottle and a very fancy handkerchief that had fallen out of the bottle. In his opinion, the Porsche was targeted because it was in a low-crime, affluent neighborhood and was not easily visible in the street. He also said there was another car parked in the driveway at the time that was not harmed. And he says, while yes, it was severely damaged, it's not the kind of catastrophic damage he normally sees from a Molotov cocktail. He testified that there was a disposable lighter outside of the car, a bottle on the driver's seat that was filled with gasoline, and a handkerchief that was sitting on the center console. He said the gasoline did not spread throughout the car because the cloth fell out and the bottle didn't shatter. He said had the bomb exploded as intended, the car parked a few feet from the house would have likely spread to the nearby foliage and eventually the home. Now, this is when Diddy's attorneys get really upset. Remember, when Kid Cudi was on the stand, it was Diddy's attorneys that asked him if he knew there was DNA found on the bottle and that it belonged to a female. Now, the prosecution was upset that that had come up, but they said, okay, you want to play? We'll talk about the DNA. They asked Lance Jimenez, the partial DNA profile wasn't consistent with a female contributor. He responds saying, I was told that. The prosecutor says, do you know what it means? He says, no. The prosecutor then says, what happened to the print cards? And he responds saying they were destroyed in 2012. On whose orders? Someone in LAPD. Not you or anyone on your team. And Diddy's attorney says, I'm going to object to all of this. Can we have a sidebar? Obviously, the prosecution's trying to paint the picture that Diddy has someone on the inside of LAPD working for him because he's that powerful. Now, CNN gave more information about this exchange. So, this happened in January of 2012, and he said that the cards were destroyed by an LAPD officer in August of 2012. He said he collected a card with 2 prints to compare to anything retrieved from the arson incident. That print card was kept in evidence from the arson case and destroyed by an LAPD officer in August of 2012, and he testified that he typically has to sign off on the destruction of any evidence as submitted as a lead investigator. And Mark Agnifilo said this line of questioning is outrageous. They are suggesting to this jury that someone in this courtroom had something to do with the improper and suspicious destruction of these fingerprints. And the jury was just let back in, and it looks like the judge agreed with Diddy's side, saying that they need to disregard the fingerprint card's testimony. Investigator Lance Jimenez is still on the stand. They haven't started cross yet, and I will be Celebrity stylist and close friend to Cassie, Deontay Nash, took the stand briefly before they went on a lunch break, and apparently he had the courtroom laughing. It got serious real quick when he started talking about threats as well as control behind the scenes. He started off by saying he started working for Diddy and Cassie in 2008 after responding to a Craigslist ad for Bad Boy Entertainment. Worked as Cassie's stylist from 2008 until 2018 and said he did not want to be there, and the only reason he's answering questions on the stand today is because he was subpoenaed. He was asked how often he witnessed Diddy and Cassie interacting, and he said at least once a week. And then he was asked, what did you hear Diddy calling her? He said, aside from CC and baby girl, he would often call her the B word, HOE, as well as SLUT. He said it would make Cassie sad, and then he testified that Diddy threatened her multiple times. Allegedly, Diddy would tell Cassie that he would not only beat her, but that he would release her S-tapes if she stepped out of line. According to Deontay, that would leave Cassie emotionally broken, and she would isolate herself for days and often crying. He also talked about how on 2 separate occasions, he would tell Cassie she could not go out without his permission. On one incident, they went to a gay club with Rita Ora and Adrian Bailon, and then went to her LA apartment after. He apparently called her and told her she better get her ASS to his house, and she panicked, packed up, and left immediately. Also talked about an Oscars after party, which happened in 2014 at the Vanity Fair party. He said he had styled Cassie to have her hair down, but when they got to the party, Diddy was not happy. He said at the party, Diddy grabbed him by the jacket and was furious that her hair was not up. So they went into the bathroom and he pinned her hair up. But later, Diddy admitted that her hair looked better down and started talking about her recording music and how he would help her pick songs, and then said he should have been an executive, but they objected to that and continued. He then talked about a mixtape she put out in 2013 called Rockabye Baby and how it was released for free. He said the mixtape did well. It was actually a top download. He basically said Diddy never put it up for streaming, and then said he was generous to say that 10% of her music was ever released, which shows much of Diddy's control. When it came to what Cassie wore, he also testified that Diddy had to give approval. In his own words, he picked the one he liked, and that's the one we used. Judge decided this was a good place to break, so they're at lunch until 1:15. I will be back to let you know what else he has to say, and after he's done, we have our final witness for the day, which is victim number 2, and we don't know her real name. All we know is that they're calling her Mia, and she used to be Diddy's assistant. Celebrity style. It's day 11 of Diddy's trial, and first up on the witness stand is LAPD officer Christopher Ignacio, and he's the one that responded to the call to Kid Cudi's home. It was the morning of December 22nd, 2011, and he testified that he was working from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., and he and his partner got a code 3 call, which means lights and sirens on to respond to a potential break-in. He said when he pulled up, he saw a black Escalade with tinted windows parked in front of the house, but it quickly drove uphill, and he memorized the license plate because there had been no crime confirmed yet. He said he later ran the plates and confirmed it was registered under Bad Boy Records, which of course is Diddy's company. He said the front door was unlocked and there was no sign of forced entry or struggle. So far, his testimony confirms what Capricorn Clark testified to yesterday, that they were there in front of the house, and when they saw a police car, Ruben drove off. And Officer Ignacio testified that when he went inside the home, there were high-end gifts, some wrapped and some unwrapped, which is also what Kid Cudi had said, and testified that he saw the Escalade again driving back down the hill past the home. He said Kid Cudi then showed up in his Porsche and they filed a trespassing report. Since nothing appeared to be stolen, they did not file it as a burglary. Brian Steele then came up for cross-examination and then mentioned the fact that this was 13 years ago, in other words, trying to insinuate that his memory could be fuzzy. The points that were brought up during cross was that Ignacio never followed the Escalade, that he didn't confirm seeing a car chase, that there was no report of a weapon, and that the house showed no damage and nothing was overturned, and that he did not file a BOLO, which is a be on the lookout for the Escalade. Then Brian Steele suggested that police did not consider this a serious crime and it was just trespassing. And when asked if Kid Cudi was hyperventilating, he said he was tense. Prosecutors did not redirect, and now on the stand is Arson investigator Lance Jimenez. It's day 11 of Diddy's trial, and first up on the witness.
Here's what happened on day 11 of the Diddy trial. LAPD officer Chris Ignacio responded to Kid Cudi's home after the break-in. A black Escalade registered to Bad Boy Records was parked outside. It took off when he arrived, and it came back 15 to 20 minutes later. The officer said he didn't pursue the SUV because no crime had been committed. The door was unlocked, and Ignacio entered the home. No one was there, and when Kid Cudi eventually came back, he filed a trespassing report. Nothing was stolen from the home, and Diddy wasn't charged. LAFD investigator Lance Jimenez investigated the Molotov cocktail that destroyed Kid Cudi's Porsche. The bottle tested for female DNA. Importantly, going back to the break-in, Jimenez testified that LAPD collected 2 prints from the glass door of Kid Cudi's home. Jimenez wanted to compare those prints to the evidence in the arson case, but the fingerprint card was destroyed. The defense moved for a mistrial, arguing that the prosecution was improperly suggesting that Diddy was somehow responsible for the destruction of the fingerprint evidence. The judge struck the testimony and told the jurors to disregard it, but he denied the mistrial motion. Jimenez testified that he tried to contact Capricorn Clark and Cassie during his investigation, but they wouldn't cooperate. Clark's brother told him to stop calling, and Cassie's father, who was also a fireman, said he would let Cassie know, but Cassie never contacted him. Celebrity stylist Deontay Nash saw Cassie with bruises and a black eye. When Cassie didn't answer her phone one day, Diddy punched and kicked Cassie until she hit her head on a bed frame and started bleeding. Mia, one of Diddy's assistants, was also there. She's another victim who will testify this week, probably the mom. This is when Cassie received a gash on her eyebrow and went to a plastic surgeon. Nash also said Cassie didn't want to go to a freak-off after her 29th birthday or have sex with other men, but she did because Diddy wanted her to. The defense unsuccessfully tried to keep this out, arguing that it was hearsay. Nash also helped Cassie hide from Diddy, often at hotels. Nash said Diddy told Cassie he would release sex tapes of her on the internet and send them to her parents' work. This is coercion and extortion for sex trafficking and racketeering, respectively. On cross-examination, Nash admitted that he didn't report the violence and that Diddy helped launch his career. Outside the courtroom,
Dante Nash was back on the witness stand and he was supposed to finish today. In fact, Diddy's attorneys had asked the judge if they could push it until 4 p.m. so they could be done with him. During his cross-examination, he did ask for a short break, and after the short break, Diddy's attorney tells the judge, yeah, we're actually not going to finish at 4 o'clock. The judge responded saying, did you know that before I told the jury it's going to be 4? And he responded saying, I didn't know. But they get into questioning him and they asked, when you came to meet with the prosecutors, you had an attorney present? And he said yes. Then they asked if he hired a civil attorney because he was planning on suing Diddy, and he said no. He said it was just counsel for protection because he does not do federal court. Diddy's attorney then brought up a note from the prosecution that said that he hired an attorney because he was considering a lawsuit, and he said, that's their assumption, not mine. I'm just focused on getting out of here. The defense then showed him an image of Usher and Cassie at a 2016 Bad Boy reunion show and asked if he had picked out her outfit. He said, I don't know, and then he was asked if he had started out as a celebrity stylist and asked if Diddy introduced him to Cassie, to which he said yes. And let me tell you, he had no patience for Diddy's attorney because Diddy's attorney said, so it was Mr. Combs who made you a celebrity stylist? And he said, sure, go ahead. Diddy's attorney then responded, I am going ahead. As a celebrity stylist, you pick clothes like for Mrs. Fine's wedding? And he said yes. He was then asked, as head of Bad Boy, it was in Diddy's best interest to make sure that Cassie looked good, right? And he said, I suppose. Bad Boy paid for Cassie's studio time, right? And he said, yes. But the thing is, that proves the prosecution's point, that Diddy would spend money, but then he would take the stuff away if she didn't do what he wanted. Because then they followed up the question with, she can't go to the studio unless he pays, right? Like, yes, you're proving the point. They then asked him about a clothing brand called Young and Reckless, and he said it was a streetwear clothing brand. Cassie owned a part of it. So they asked him, Mr. Combs had nothing to do with it, and then he responded with, he had to approve everything. They asked him who else he styled. He said Cassie, Puff, Mace, Lil' Kim in 2016, and other major artists. He also talked about the fact that he was an executive producer on the mixtape, as well as Meek Mill and Pusha T, but never got any credit for it. And talking about the fact that Diddy had to approve everything, he was asked if Diddy did that with other artists, and he said, not that I know of. Some of them looked terrible. Most of the artists kind of did their own thing. He was then asked if he had spoken to other witnesses like Banna and Cassie, and he said yes, but not about his testimony. He said he spoke to Cassie yesterday after she gave birth to congratulate her. He emphasized that he never discussed any court matters with Cassie, only clothing and checking in. He then brought up substances and asked what he had seen her take, and he said snow, X, and MDMA. The defense then said, what about mushrooms or acid? And he said, I'm not privy to that. He then asked if he had ever done snow, to which he said yes, and asked if he did Mary J before meeting with the prosecutors, and he said yes. And he said because of that, the prosecutor ended up cutting the meeting short. He then asked if making music videos cost hundreds of thousands of dollars, to which he said not necessarily, and then said who was Mia, to which he said Diddy's personal assistant. They then asked, you and Mia jumped on Mr. Combs to protect Cassie from him, right? And he said, and to protect him from doing something worse. D-Rock tried to protect you and not protect Mr. Combs? And he said, yes. That's where they ended it. He will be back on the stand tomorrow, even though he wasn't supposed to be. And Diddy's attorney tried it. They tried to call for a mistrial just now. If you missed it, go back to my last video. But basically, firefighter Lance Jimenez said that he had collected 2 fingerprints on a fingerprint card that was later destroyed by an LAPD officer and not on his command. Mark Agnifilo immediately moved to strike, and it escalated to a full mistrial motion, and he accused the prosecutors of misconduct. But remember, he is the one that brought up the DNA on the bottle when Kid Cudi was on the stand. His other attorney, Alexandra Shapiro, said this plays into the conspiracy that Diddy can buy his way out of anything. And she argued that jurors already came in with that belief during jury selection, and the questions about destroyed fingerprint evidence fed right into it. Goes on to tell the judge that they should have ended with when the fingerprint cards were destroyed, but they asked, did he authorize it? There's no way to unring this bell. The only proper remedy here is a mistrial. The prosecutor responded saying that's absolutely unwarranted. It was Mr. Agnifilo who wanted to inquire into the DNA into the investigation. Your Honor can just say that the jurors should not draw any inference from the destruction of the fingerprint cards, and the judge said application for a mistrial is denied. He said, I sustain the objections when raised. The jurors have already been told that questions are not evidence. His attorney then said, Your Honor should tell the jury that the questions were improper, and the prosecutor responded saying they weren't improper. You could say disregard both. Diddy's attorney tried again, saying, will the court tell the jurors that the answers are not to be considered? And the judge responded saying, I'll tell them that the questions and answers on the fingerprints are irrelevant to this case and not to be considered. And Diddy's attorney said, thank you, Your Honor, and the jury came back in. Ooh, I will be back once Lance Jimenez is off the witness stand. Diddy's attorney tried it. They tried to call for a mistrial just now. If you missed it, go back to my last video. But basically, firefighter Lance Jimenez.
Y'all subscribe and hit the like button.
Diddy's on trial for sex trafficking and racketeering. Day 11, wild. We got pictures and evidence of the arson going on. But did Diddy do it? Let's find out. Diddy's defense just tried to shut the entire trial down with a mistrial motion after the shocking testimony about the firebombing with Kid Cudi. Remember the time Kid Cudi's Porsche got firebombed? Yeah, we got evidence. We got pictures with no one seeing exactly what happened. Oh, and the fingerprint evidence.
It is Wednesday, day 11 in the Diddy trial, and you know I've got the details. First person to take the stand today was a Los Angeles police officer, Chris Ignacio, and he is one of the officers that answered the call about the break-in at Kid Cudi's house. He said when he entered Cudi's home, he spotted a table with Christmas gifts on it, and some were wrapped, some were opened. Obviously, this backs up Cudi's previous testimony that Sean broke into his home and opened his family's Christmas gifts. Now, police observed a car leaving the scene, and that car was registered to one of Sean's companies. The officer said when they pulled up, they noticed the Cadillac Escalade in front of the rapper's home. He memorized the license plate. When they looked it up, it was registered to Bad Boy Productions. He added that they did not have a confirmed crime when reporting to the home, so a trespassing report was made. So during cross-examination, Diddy's attorneys is trying to get him to testify that the incident at the home was not reported as a burglary. He asked the officer whether there was any evidence of stolen items, and the officer said no. The officer also testified there were no reports made to him at the time that there was a threat to kill anyone. This is important for Sean's defense because robbery and murder are crimes that would provide support for a racketeering charge. They then called to the stand arson investigator Lance Jimenez. He was dispatched to Kid Cudi's home when they found the Molotov cocktail in his burned vehicle. And he reported a bottle with a burned handkerchief on the center console with the smell of gasoline. He testified that the cloth fell out of the bottle and didn't break, which would have caused the gasoline inside the bottle to disperse, and that the damage to Kid Cudi's car was not as extensive as it could have been. Jimenez called the fire inside Cudi's car a targeted crime. The investigator said it was clear that an attacker took a bottle of gasoline, put a cloth in it, set on fire, and dropped it into the rapper's Porsche. And arson is among the acts listed in the racketeering conspiracy charges against Sean Combs. Then Jimenez, the investigator, mentioned that some fingerprints that were lifted during the trespassing probe were destroyed, and this created chaos. The defense was like, that statement needs to be stricken from the record. What the government has done is outrageous. And the judge agreed and said to strike the mentions of the lost fingerprints from the record. Then the defense tried to get a mistrial, accusing the prosecution of misconduct over the implication of the destroying fingerprints. The judge denied the motion. He's like, look, we struck the mention of the fingerprints from the record, but it's not a mistrial. Investigator Jimenez said that he wanted to interview people that were close to Sean in regards to Kid Cudi's car fire. He especially wanted to interview Cassie and Capricorn Clark, but said they never returned his calls, and when he would knock on their doors, they never answered. Next on the stand is Deontay Nash, a stylist of Cassie and Diddy's. Earlier in trial, Cassie had testified that Nash was a friend of hers. He was present one of the times that Diddy had attacked her and actually jumped on Diddy's back to try to help defend her. Deontay testified that he spent time with the couple, Cassie and Sean, and that whenever Cassie would say or do something Sean didn't like, he would threaten her with the fact that he wasn't going to release her music. Deontay testified that he spent time with Sean and Cassie, and whenever Cassie would do something Sean didn't like, he would threaten her with that he wasn't going to release her music. We know she signed a 10-album deal with him and only ever released one album. Deontay also testified that he heard Sean threaten Cassie's parents sometime in 2012 or 2013. Deontay testified that him and Cassie went to a party in 2014 and that she looked really good. She had her hair down, but when they arrived, Diddy grabbed him up, lifted him up, and said that Cassie's hair needed to be put up. So he asked people for hairpins, took Cassie to the bathroom, pinned her hair up. Nash says that later, Combs admitted to him that Cassie's hair did look better down. Obviously, he didn't want her to look good. He also said he would always have to send pictures of Cassie and her outfits to Sean and get approval from him first. At this point, they break for lunch. That's it for this morning's recap. You know I'll be back in the afternoon with the rest.
Hi everyone, it is day 11, week 3 of United States versus Sean Combs. Right off the bat, I want to let you all know that the defense moved for a mistrial today. It was denied, but it got very spicy in the courtroom. But I'll get there. I'll tell you exactly what happened. But first, let me start with the first witness of the day, someone from the LAPD, a police officer named Christopher Ignacio, 16-year vet. He was working in December 2011 when he was called to Kid Cudi's house for a possible break-in at 8:20 a.m. That's when he was called from dispatch, or he received this call. So he goes there with his partner, lights and sirens on, just in case he doesn't know what's going on. He says that when he pulls up to the house, outside of the house is a black Escalade. And he said he looked at the license plate and he made sure to memorize it. He actually recited it for us on the stand. He testified that he went inside the house. You know, he saw the presents on the table, a watch, some purses. He said that 2 other detectives showed up and they searched the house. Nothing was missing, nothing was broken, and they wrote up a report. He said when he got back outside, he saw the same black Escalade come down a hill. And, you know, he also testified, just going back, after the black Cadillac, or the Escalade, it's a Cadillac Escalade, just kidding. I'll refer to it as both. After the Cadillac drove away, he said that the homeowner's black Porsche pulled up, which we know was Kid Cudi. So that was pretty much it was a very short, direct, but during cross-examination, which was done by Brian Steele, and by the way, he has really good pace, Brian Steele. He just kind of gets it done. He said, you know, did you see at any point the Escalade and the Porsche next to each other. Like, did you see the Porsche pull up next to the Escalade? And the police officer said no. And he said, so did you see a chase? Did you see the Escalade chase the Porsche up a hill? And he said no, because that's what we heard yesterday from Capricorn Clark. And then, you know, he kind of said, okay, so you wrote this report, you're very detailed, you just told us the license plate number. Did the homeowner share with you anything about a gun, that somebody who broke into his house might have a gun? And he said no. So that was a moment. He said, all right, so, you know, if he didn't testify that there is a gun, like, was it a burglary? What was it? And he kind of just said they wrote a trespassing report. He did say that Kid Cudi appeared flustered, and another point of contention, or I guess trying to discredit Capricorn Clark, was the timing, since they were called to the house at 8:20. I think she said it was somewhere between 6 and 7 a.m. So I think they wanted to point out that discrepancy. But then we got to the arson investigator, and his name is Jimenez, and Lance Jimenez, excuse me. And he's a 22-year vet with the LA Fire Department. And essentially an arson investigator is like a detective for the fire department. So this is actually where the mistrial comes in. So he was discussing the fact that he was called to the residence of Kid Cudi in Hollywood Hills after around 11 a.m. after the fire department got there, because they were going to do an investigation. So we were shown pictures of the car, where it was parked in the driveway, evidence photos, and all of that jazz. Now, the driveway of Kid Cudi's house was really long, and I was surprised to see that the car was parked right in front of the garage, which was closed, and there was 2 other cars parked behind it. So what Jimenez testified was that, you know, his opinion as an expert was that somebody cut the top of the car and dropped in this Molotov cocktail, which, my papers, which, by the way, was in an old English bottle. And he said that there was a silk scarf used, and so he believes that this is why the Molotov cocktail didn't really explode properly, because he said, you know, there was damage to the car, obviously, but it was minimal damage, and he thinks it's because of the scarf. And if it actually did explode and go off, it could have done a lot more damage and even possibly, you know, reach the house. Now, they were discussing just, you know, evidence getting tested and all that stuff, how, you know, he sent it off, but he didn't really know that much about the DNA evidence that was retrieved. He said that he knew that there were partial female fingerprints taken from the Old English bottle, and he also said that he spoke to Kid Cudi, and Kid Cudi gave him some names to call, just people who might know things, and he gave him the names of Capricorn Clark and Cassie Ventura. And, you know, the defense said, well, did you call these women essentially after you found out there was female DNA on the bottle? And he said that he didn't know. But Cassie did not answer, and obviously Capricorn didn't answer. He also stated that Capricorn's brother kind of threatened him on the phone when he called a few times trying to reach her. And he also said, and this is Jimenez, Lance Jimenez, he said that he actually even contacted Cassie's father, who was a firefighter, who you know, said, okay, I'll try to get in touch with Cassie. Never did. So they also, the LAPD, I guess this is where I'm going with the mistrial, they were able to do a print card, is what it was called, where they took fingerprints off of his door from this trespassing incident, and they were trying to lift other fingerprints off of the bottle, of, you know, some of the evidence that they found. And so it turns out this print card, the government pointed out that it was destroyed in August of 2012. And it wasn't destroyed at the directive of Jimenez. It was destroyed by somebody in the LAPD. And the government went on to say, you know, did you authorize this card to be destroyed? And he said no. And then they said, you know, was it unusual for something like this to happen, or this card to be destroyed? And then there was an objection. It was sustained, and we took a break. But what happened was the defense said that during jury selection, there was concerns from the jury that Sean Combs and other celebrities can buy their way out of these situations. So the defense was saying that the government was kind of purposely planting this and using lines of questioning, like they were, to infer that he paid for someone in the LAPD to destroy this evidence. And when they went to move for a mistrial, they're just kind of like, how can they unhear that? That's going to be in their minds. The government said that, that there was no prejudice there. We weren't doing that, quote, on purpose. What did they say? Yes. So basically the judge denied the mistrial because the defense did not object until the last question. And I wish I wrote down the other questions. I'll have to refer to the transcript. But then there was a really spicy moment because Alexandra Shapiro, Diddy's attorney, said, well, then judge, I want you to tell the jury that they should disregard the government's improper questions and obviously the answers. And then the government's like, you don't refer to us as being improper. That's not going to look good. That's not cool. And essentially the judge said, okay, I'm not going to say that you guys are improper, but what I will say is please disregard the questions and the answers. They have no bearing on the case. So he did tell the jury that, they finished up the questioning, the direct and everything. And then we got to the cross by Mark Agnifilo. And what was so crazy is that he pointed out this black glove in the back seat. There was like a lone black glove. And he's like, did you guys test this glove for evidence or for DNA? And they're like, no. And he said, well, where's the other glove? And he said, well, we asked the owner, Kid Cudi, and he said it's his driving glove. And Agnifilo was very much like, okay, well, where's the other glove? Why would it be in the back seat? Just really focusing on the black glove. And I was like, oh, Jay, oh my gosh. So yeah, they just were, let me see, anything else? Oh, and they pointed out the glove wasn't in the report. Reaching out to Cassie and Capricorn Clark after they saw that the DNA was partially female. He didn't know. Yeah, that was basically it for the cross. Then we saw Deontay Nash, Cassie's stylist. And I'll make this quick and I'll get to the rest of his testimony later. But he was funny. He got some laughs from the courtroom. Oh, and before I forget, Diddy's mom and his 3 sons are here, Justin, Quincy, and Christian. And Christian had his arm around Janice Combs for much of the morning. But really quickly, Deontay Nash testified about one specific incident, and I'll go into more detail later about what he said. But a 2014 Vanity Fair party where he and Cassie showed up, and Diddy didn't like Cassie's hair. He kind of held up Deontay by his jacket and said, go fix her hair. They went to fix her hair, put it up. They came out of the bathroom, and Diddy's like, oh, I guess it does look better down. He testified a lot more, but I'll get into that later because I'm doing.
Day number 11 of the Diddy trial. And they said the courtroom hit a whole new level, y'all. I'm talking about Dragon Ball Z Hyperbolic Chamberish. I got the whole report for y'all like always. But before we get into it, make sure you like and share this video. And also down below in the comments, let me know how y'all scoring this. Is Diddy free right now or he cooked? Let me know. So the day starts off with the government calling the LAPD officer named Christopher to the stand. They bring in the jury. Jury may enter. They made old boy swear in. And AUSA asked him the simplest shit. What is a radio call? Now, I really don't think we need to get into what's a radio call, right? Everybody should know that. That's a dumbass question. But here's where it get wild, y'all. They said something happened on December 22nd, 2011. And I got it here for you. The officer, Christopher, said he was working his shift. And around 8 in the morning, he got a code 3. I need y'all federales to tell me what the code 3 is, because I don't know. He said he was in his whip. He cut on them signs. Woo, woo, woo. He said once he cut on them signs, he was cutting up through traffic. He said he headed to a house in the Hollywood Hill. They asked him, what did you find? He said, a black Escalade. He said he memorized the license plates because something felt off. He said when he pulled up on the scene and seen the Escalade, skirt, he said the Escalade pulled off. He said at that point, technically, there was no crime being made. He said, but when he went to the home, the door was open, so he allowed himself in. He said when he walked in the home, he saw high-end items. He saw purses, he saw watches. He said some of the joints were covered up, some of them wasn't. He said there was no sign of forced entry. No furniture moved around, nothing seemed out of the ordinary. He said that's when 2 more detectives pulled up. He said they was inside, but then when they stepped outside, that same Escalade that was sitting outside when he first pulled up drove past. And they said shortly after that, Kid Cudi pulled up in his Porsche. He said now that the Escalade was being suspicious and he remembered their license plates, he said he put it in the system, ran that junk, and they came back to Bad Boy Records. And y'all know, that's his shit. Then after that, there were no further questions from the prosecution. But wait, Diddy lawyer comes up. One of his lawyers named Brian Steele. He's doing a cross-examination. They said this man was poking holes left and right. Boop, boop, boop. Diddy lawyer asked him, this was 13 years ago, right? You read your partner's report, right? You didn't chase the car. Did you see the Porsche? Christopher was like, I don't know. And they said, Diddy lawyer was like, do you know the definition of kidnapping? Prosecution quickly said, objection. The judge said, sustained. He said at this point it was a little back and forth. And then Diddy lawyer Brian Steele asked him, so why didn't you file for burglary? He was like, why wasn't it a theft? Did they see any security cameras? Did they search Kid Cudi's Porsche? And Christopher said, nope, they didn't do none of them things. He said all he remembered from that situation is Cudi seemed tense, but he wasn't hyperventilating or nothing like that. He wasn't acting out of the ordinary. So they said after that little debacle, they brung up one of LA top arsonist investigators. So they started asking them about the car fire that was at the same home they pulled up in the Hollywood Hill. Then he said what we already know, it was a Molotov cocktail that burned Kid Cudi's car. So they said somebody cut the roof from the top and then threw the Molotov in that bit. Y'all, and they left the lighter on the ground. And they said the bottle they used to do it was an old English malt liquor bottle. Then they started talking about the DNA. But they said the DNA matched a female, y'all. That's when the defense said objection to all the DNA stuff. And the judge said, sustained. Said after that, things get tensed. AUSA asked, what happened to the fingerprint cards? And the investigator, the arson investigator said, that shit was destroyed in 2012 by an LAPD officer. That's when the defense got heated, y'all. They started calling for a mistrial. They said that shit looked like a cover-up or a misconduct. The judge said he'll strike any testimony about the destruction. He looked at the jurors and was like, ignore it, y'all. Just ignore that situation. Defense was still adamant. They was like, nah, judge, we want a mistrial. I think we deserve a mistrial. The judge was like, no, you're not getting it. He looks over to the jurors and was like I said, just forget about the fingerprint DNA shit. So that's pretty much it with that investigator. And then somebody named Dante Nash steps up. He was a celebrity stylist. He said he worked with Diddy and Cassie back in 08, and he got the job from Craigslist, y'all. So they started asking him about Diddy and Cassie relationship, and they said things got dark. Nash said Diddy used to call Cassie everything in the book from A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and y'all know the rest. Nothing was off the table. And he started saying what other people would say that Diddy said to Cassie, like threatened that he will beat the out of her, that he'll leak her shit. And he said this was happening on a weekly basis. He said, and when this whole shit was happening, Cassie would be emotional, obviously. He said, and then she'll go hiding for days. He said Diddy ran everything. He ran that girl. He said she couldn't do shit without Diddy say so. but I thought she just hid for days. But anyway, he said one time he told her, you better not leave without my permission. Said he recalled one time after a party, Diddy made Cassie go pack some bags and was like, you coming to my house. And he said Cassie was scared as fuck. Nash described the time when Puffy came to the house and they were getting ready for the OVO Fest. And he said he seen Diddy dragging Cassie by her hair, y'all. And he was punching and kicking her. So unlike everybody else that seen this shit going on, Nash said he tried to help. He said, but Puffy threw him off. Get off of me, nigga. He said after that, when they seen him trying to help another person named Mia try to help too. They said, and then that's when Cassie's head hit the base of the bed, like, bah! He said he seen red, she was leaking. He said when that happened, Puffy looked at everybody and blamed them like, look what y'all made me do, it's y'all fault. He said later on that day, he seen Cassie and she had a gash over her eyebrow. Y'all seen them pics too. AUSA asked, did this happen often? He said, yeah, quite often this happened. Nash also said Diddy would threaten to send Cassie sex tapes to her mom's job to get her fired. It started getting a little weird, y'all. So Nash talked about a time Puffy came to his house looking for Cassie. He said this man was checking everywhere. He even checked the oven. Nash said then Diddy took his phone and then told the bad boy staff to go get Cassie. Nash said when he went to Cassie's hotel, she was so scared that she was talking about jumping off the balcony. He said, and Diddy and his staff was downstairs waiting for her like a movie. And that's pretty much it, y'all. They mostly talked about irrelevant shit after that. And they
Y'all subscribe and hit the like button.
Diddy trial, day 11. Prosecution is calling Deontay Nash.
She talked too low.
Diddy trial, day 11. Deontay Nash is on the stand.
So obviously, you guys, we are at day 11 of the Diddy trial. Let's get right into it. So as we recap, they had the officer on the stand that was at the scene of Kid Cudi's house. After Kid Cudi got back to his home, he did go ahead and pursue calling the police. The officer that arrived was Officer Ignacio. He confirmed that he did see a black Escalade leaving Kid Cudi's home. The officer stated that he glanced at the license plate and decided to memorize it. When he ran the plate, it came back as Bad Boy International. That information corroborates with Capricorn Clark's story. Though a lot of people are saying that, oh, her timeline is wrong, she didn't have this and that right, but this pretty much corroborates her story. So not only did Kid Cudi state that there was a black Escalade, Capricorn Clark stated there was a black Escalade. Now the actual officer is saying there's a black Escalade. I think there's a black Escalade, y'all. The officer didn't take the stand long at all. I believe the information that he put forth was enough for the prosecution. Then we had Officer Lance Jimenez with the fire department. He stated he responded to a call of a fire.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. We're at the Diddy trial.
Diddy trial, day 11. LAPD just got off the scene.
Whew. Okay, y'all ready? Okay, here we go. Y'all got your popcorn? Okay, trigger warning, okay. Day 11, recap of the Diddy trial. These are just my own words. I listened to the TMZ and the news and CNN and all the stuff. So here's my little recap. All right, Diddy, back at it again, y'all. They think that there's a mole, that Diddy has a mole in the police department because the DNA from Kid Cudi's car all of a sudden disappeared. They can't find the DNA no more. Okay, so there's that. I think it was Cassie's birthday, 29th birthday. She didn't answer the phone like she was supposed to. So he burst into her apartment, was knocking on the damn door, came through. Literally, she was asleep. He grabbed the back of her head and just started punching. And hitting her. She had a celebrity stylist. I think his name was Deontay. He testified today. And he was just terrified. I think he came in like, oh my God, tried to jump on Diddy's back. Diddy backhanded him, got him off. Then there was a lady, I think named Mia. She tried to step in and stop him from kicking and beating Cassie. He blocked her over. I mean, Diddy, just a madman. He literally, Deontay testified that he literally, Diddy, like kept hitting him in the back of his head and all this kind of stuff. Just craziness. After Diddy was hitting and beating Cassie, literally kept hitting her and kicking her. She literally hit her head on the bed. Okay, hit her head on the bed. Blood started gushing everywhere. Okay, they had to get towels and everything. Diddy still was literally hitting and beating her. And then saw all the blood, like, oh, shit. Then he gonna say, look what y'all made me do. What? Yeah, so literally, they rushed her to a plastic surgeon. That's some rich stuff. She had to get stitches in her forehead, y'all. It's a lot. It's a lot. What else do I have? Security. They were just trying to get her away. He would follow. He had their security. Diddy was just a mess. He threatened Cassie's parents. He also threatened to release the video, some Smex tapes video of Cassie. She was all nervous, and they were like, oh, you shouldn't really be nervous. She was like, no, you don't understand. They're like, well, isn't he on any of the videos? He's like, no, it's just me. Okay, so if anybody's going to be embarrassed, it's going to be me. He threatened to give it to the parents and threatened her brother. Diddy is just horrible. She was just in tears, worried about if the video, was in tears about the video, if the video was going to come out on her. It's just a mess, just a lot. They said the mama and all his sons were sitting on the front row looking at Deontay, the celebrity, like trying to intimidate him. I think they tried to do a mistrial. Diddy's people, defense, tried to do a mistrial. It's a lot. Diddy is a lot. Like, I don't even know what to say. Like, just at any given point, he just comes and grabs Cassie's hair and beats her. It is freaking horrible. It is horrible. I think I don't know if there was anything else to.
Now, there was definitely some disturbing testimony from the third witness on day 11 of the Diddy trial, and that was from Cassie and Diddy's former stylist, Deontay Nash. The first thing Nash told the court was that he didn't want to be there testifying, and he was only there because he'd been subpoenaed. Nash started working for Diddy and Cassie in 2008 after responding to an ad on Craigslist for Bad Boy Entertainment. He testified that he would see Diddy and Cassie interacting at least once a week, and when he was asked about the names that Diddy would call Cassie, he mentioned a few. CC, baby girl Cass, but also bitch, H-O-E, S-L-U-T, and outright H-O-E. He also testified that he heard Diddy threaten Cassie on multiple occasions, saying that he would beat her ass, and after the name calling and the threats, Cassie would often cry, hide inside her house, and go into like a cocoon. Nash then recorded an incident at the 2014 Vanity Fair's Oscars after party where Diddy grabbed him by his suit and lifted him off the ground. This was because he didn't like the way that Nash had styled Cassie's hair. She was wearing it down and he wanted it up. And he made Nash fix this in a bathroom, although later he did admit that it looked better down. Nash also testified that photos of Cassie's outfits always had to be sent to Diddy because he had to give approval. Nash then told the court that he watched Diddy attack Cassie in 2013 or 2014 when he was helping her pack for a trip. Now this corroborates the testimony that we've already heard about Cassie sustained the injury to her eyebrow. Diddy came over to Cassie's home. Cassie was sleeping on the sofa, so Nash answered the door. Diddy then started yelling at her for not answering her phone, grabbed her by the hair, pulled her off the sofa and started hitting and kicking her. When asked how hard he was hitting her, the defense tried to object, but Nash said he was hitting her hard. Nash, along with one of Diddy's employees, Mia, who's also set to testify this week, then grabbed Cassie and pulled her into the bedroom where they tried to lock Diddy out. Diddy pushed the door open and continued to attack her whilst Nash and Mia jumped on his back and he threw them off. Cassie then hit her head on the bed frame, but Diddy continued to hit her even though she was bleeding. Mia then ran out to get towels, and when Diddy noticed just how much blood there was, he looked at them and said, "Look what y'all made me do." Nash testified that he then called 911, but that someone made him hang up the call before it connected, although he couldn't remember who that was. Diddy then told Cassie that she was going to see a plastic surgeon with his security guard, and the next day on a FaceTime call, Nash said that he saw a gash near her eye, incident where Diddy came home and told them all to leave, grabbed Cassie by the hair and was pushing her. Nash also said he was popping me in the back of the head because I don't have hair and grabbing me by the shirt. When Nash drove Cassie away, Diddy called them and told them to stop, and then he came to the window and started threatening Cassie. He told Cassie he was going to release explicit tapes of her online on a schedule, that he'd also send them to her parents' places of work and get them fired. And he also told Cassie that he was the only one who was actually protecting her. They then drove away and Cassie was crying, and Nash said to her, "You should let him release the tapes because he's on them too." That's when she told him that Diddy wasn't on the tapes, that he had filmed her having sex with other men. Nash then dropped Cassie off so she could get a taxi. He went home and Diddy came over and started to search his home for Cassie, even looking in the oven. Diddy then took Nash's phone and saw that Cassie was calling from a nearby hotel, so he demanded that Nash drive him over there. Because Nash knew the staff at the hotel, Diddy told him to sweet talk his way up to Cassie's room with his security guard. When they told Cassie to go downstairs because Diddy was waiting for her, she said, "I'm going to go over the balcony," as she walked towards it. Nash then said that he didn't feel safe returning home that evening, so he stayed in a nearby hotel after he'd seen a car following him. The next day, however, he did go home and found that his backpack containing his iPad, his ID and $1,000 was stolen. He recalled another incident in 2015 where he saw Diddy slap Cassie in the face and then he said, "Get this bitch out of here." When asked what he did, Nash said, "I got her out of there." He also testified that he would see bruises on her arms, leg, and neck regularly. When he was asked why he never reported any of this to the police, he said that he was scared of the repercussions and retaliation. He also testified that he would hide Cassie from Diddy often, and when this happened, Diddy would blow up everybody's phones. His chief of staff, Christina Coram, would also call and say, "He's calm now, you can return." Nash also said that he told Coram about the violence he'd been witnessing against Cassie, but that nothing ever changed. Nash was then asked about Cassie and Diddy staying in hotels, and he said they would do this around once a week, and he would see Cassie packing sex toys for these stays. When the prosecution asked Nash whether Cassie said she wanted to go, he said she didn't want to go, but she did it because he wanted her to. He was then asked about Cassie's 29th birthday, where Diddy had asked him whether he should surprise Cassie. He testified that he wasn't about to tell him not to surprise her, but that Cassie and Diddy got into an argument over dinner. Diddy had said to Cassie, "I do everything for you and you won't do this one thing." And then Cassie told Nash that Diddy was mad with her because she didn't want to go to the hotel and freak off with him. He also testified that Cassie had to participate in a freak off on New Year's Eve 2017 and that he had to wake her up to go to it. Diddy had actually said to him, "I've spent all of this money, so she has to do it." Nash ended his direct testimony by saying that even though he stopped working for Diddy in 2018, the two have stayed in touch, exchanging the odd text message. He said he would always act loving towards Diddy when they spoke, despite everything that he witnessed and endured. He also said he's never pursued any legal action or put in a monetary claim or demand against Diddy. He also said he's still close with Cassie Ventura and that they speak often. When asked how he feels about Diddy now, he said, "I don't hate him, I just don't have that in me." Now, there was definitely some disturbing testimony from the third witness on day 11 of the Diddy trial, and that was from Cassie and Diddy's former stylist, Deontay Nash. The first thing Nash told the court was that he didn't want to be there testifying, and he was only there because he'd been subpoenaed. Nash started working for Diddy and Cassie in 2008 after responding to an ad on Craigslist for Bad Boy Entertainment. He testified that he would see Diddy and Cassie interacting at least once a week, and when he was asked about the names that Diddy would call Cassie, he mentioned a few. CC, baby girl Cass, but also bitch, HOE, SLUT, and outright HOE. He also testified that he heard Diddy threaten Cassie on multiple occasions, saying that he would beat her ass, and after the name calling and the threats, Cassie would often cry, hide inside her house, and go into like a cocoon. Nash then recalled an incident at the 2014 Vanity Fair's Oscars after party where Diddy grabbed him by his suit and
These attorneys are pissed off, and it has everything to do with what firefighter Lance Jimenez just said on the witness stand. They're currently on a 10-minute break. They removed the jury from the courtroom, and all the attorneys are speaking to the judge, and let me tell you why. So Lance Jimenez had said he responded to Kid Cudi's home in January of 2012, and when they arrived, they had seen exactly what we saw in the images. He said the Porsche was parked close to the garage, and he witnessed the fact that the roof was cut up and the inside of the car was slightly burned. There was a bottle and a very fancy handkerchief that had fallen out of the bottle. In his opinion, the Porsche was targeted because it was in a low-crime, affluent neighborhood and was not easily visible in the street. He also said there was another car parked in the driveway at the time that was not harmed. And he says, while yes, it was severely damaged, it's not the kind of catastrophic damage he normally sees from a Molotov cocktail. He testified that there was a disposable lighter outside of the car, a bottle on the driver's seat that was filled with gasoline, and a handkerchief that was sitting on the center console. He said the gasoline did not spread throughout the car because the cloth fell out and the bottle didn't shatter. He said had the bomb exploded as intended, the car parked a few feet from the house would have likely spread to the nearby foliage and eventually the home. Now this is when Diddy's attorneys get really upset. Remember, when Kid Cudi was on the stand, it was Diddy's attorneys that asked him if he knew there was DNA found on the bottle and that it belonged to a female. Now the prosecution was upset that that had come up, but they said, okay, you want to play? We'll talk about the DNA. They asked Lance Jimenez, the partial DNA profile wasn't consistent with a female contributor. He responds saying, I was told that. The prosecutor says, do you know what it means? He says, no. The prosecutor then says, what happened to the print cards? And he responds saying they were destroyed in 2012. On whose orders? Someone in LAPD. Not you or anyone on your team. And Diddy's attorney says, I'm going to object to all of this. Can we have a sidebar? Obviously, the prosecution's trying to paint the picture that Diddy has someone on the inside of LAPD working for him because he's that powerful. Now, CNN gave more information about this exchange. So, you know, this happened in January of 2012, and he said that the cards were destroyed by an LAPD officer in August of 2012. He said he collected a card with 2 prints to compare to anything retrieved from the arson incident. That print card was kept in evidence from the arson case and destroyed by an LAPD officer in August of 2012, and he testified that he typically has to sign off on the destruction of any evidence as submitted as a lead investigator. Mark Agnifilo said this line of questioning is outrageous. They are suggesting to this jury that someone in this courtroom had something to do with the improper and suspicious destruction of these fingerprints. And the jury was just let back in, and it looks like the judge agreed with Diddy's side, saying that they need to disregard the fingerprint card's testimony. Investigator Lance Jimenez is still on the stand. They haven't started cross yet, and I will be back to let you know what else happens. Remember Cassie's half-shaved head.
Okay, y'all, I'm back. So let's talk about what went on day 11 of the Diddy trial. I know y'all missed me. We're going to talk about the judge, the lawyers, the DNA, and more of Kid Cudi, but the most compelling witness, Capricorn Clark. It started with the judge side-eyeing the prosecution, starting off with him saying, I see y'all burned to midnight oil. He said, but what about them DNA questions? So prosecution answered, and they tried to downplay it, saying that the investigator that was on the stand, that they tried to get the testimony dismissed. I'll update y'all on that too. They said that the investigator's knowledge of the DNA was limited. And the judge was like, didn't I ask the serologist if the DNA tests were done? But plot twist, because they were saying there was no DNA. However, there was partial DNA found on the glass bottle that was found in Kid Cudi's car. However, the profile was consistent with a female and not a male. So his lawyer kind of chewed that one. He said, So Diddy's lawyer is like, well, if the DNA was Sean Combs, then the whole investigation would have went a completely different way. The prosecutor tried to object that, saying that that might mislead the jury. At this point in time, there's no jurors in the courtroom. So the judge overruled that and decided that they wanted to have a sidebar. So then the judge pivoted and asked, what about the summary chart? Bank records, phone records, text messages. So the Fed said that they're going to queue that up. It's all coming in because they're just laying the blueprint. So then with Dr. Hughes testifying as an expert witness, the judge is like, well, is that even admissible? Because it could be labeled as an opinion. So they had their sidebar and then they brought in the jury. I just wanted to give y'all that update, and then the next update y'all see will be Capricorn Clark, my thoughts and the testimony. Sorry y'all, I've been busy. Okay y'all, I'm back. So let's talk about what went on day 11 of the Diddy trial. I know y'all missed me. We're gonna talk about the judge, the lawyers, the DNA, and more of Kid Cudi, but the most compelling witness, Capricorn Clark. It started with the judge's side on the prosecution, starting off with him saying, "I see y'all burned in midnight oil." He said, "But what about them DNA questions?" So prosecution answered in that.
Like 2 hours coming out, y'all. And I got out here as fast as I could.
So someone from the LAPD destroyed the fingerprint cards in the arson case for Kid Cudi? Interesting. So today is day 11 of the Diddy trial, and Lance Jimenez, the arson investigator, is on the stand taking questions from the prosecution. He stated that he was the one who went to investigate the arson. He said when he arrived, he noticed that the top of the Porsche was sliced open, looks like with something like a knife of some kind, and a Montauf, I know y'all got me in the comments last time because I didn't pronounce it right, mocktail was dropped inside of the vehicle. He said that the reason that the vehicle didn't explode is because the handkerchief that was used in the glass bottle for the chemicals to catch fire fell out of the bottle, and the bottle did not burst. So therefore, the fire only got on the driver's side, and if it had burst inside, then the shrubbery next to the house would have caught on fire from the car being on fire, on top of the house being able to catch on fire as well, because it would have spread that fast. He said that he knew it was a targeted act because this is a low crime area in LA and they don't have crimes around there, especially not crimes like this. The prosecutor went on to ask, was there any DNA found on the bottle or anything like that? He said, yes, there was fingerprints found on the bottle. They asked, was it female fingerprints? Because remember last week, Diddy's team brought up that there was female fingerprints female DNA, on the bottle when he was questioning Kid Cudi. Kid Cudi said he don't know nothing about that. He never heard anything else about the arson case. So then the prosecutor asked, well, was there female DNA? He said, well, I don't know about that. All I know is that I pulled some fingerprint cards to match them up with the fingerprints found on the bottle, but those fingerprint cards were destroyed. And the prosecutor said, what do you mean the fingerprint cards were destroyed? He said someone from the LAPD gave orders in 2012 to destroy the fingerprint cards, and the fingerprint cards for the arson case was destroyed. And of course, Diddy's team said, objection, sidebar. So the judge sent the jury out for 10 minutes, and now we're back on the stand. They have decided to throw out the fingerprint card part because that's basically like implying that Diddy had somebody on the inside who destroyed the cards for him at the LAPD, which could have happened. We don't know.
I'm gonna whisper my way into this Diddy trial. Oh my God, something crazy just happened. The judge just had.
So someone from the LAPD destroyed.
Here is your update to the P. Diddy trial, day 11, May 28th. Today's crazy. Wild. First off, we start out the day with an LAPD officer on the stand by the name of Christopher Ignacio. He responded to the 2011 call that Kid Cudi made, claiming that someone just broke into his home. That when he got there, he saw a black Escalade with tinted windows just speeding away as he got to the house. He was able to get the plates off of that car, and guess what? The plate registered back to Bad Boy Records. Oh, it's a pretty big blow there. I think we all know that this whole story adds up at this point. He went inside the home. He did see the presents unwrapped and wrapped on the counter. Everything else that was said corroborated with what the police officer saw. He said that when Cuddy came to the home and met him there, he was very flustered, very upset, but he never made any formal accusations. He never named anyone and said, I think this is who did this, or anything like that. He just kind of let the police do their investigation. Then the defense questioned Officer Ignacio, and they asked him if he was told anything about a gun, about Diddy potentially having a gun. He said no, he doesn't remember being told anything about a gun, nor did he write anything about that in his report. In my opinion, why would he be told about a gun? But the defense also asked him if he saw Kid Cudi's Porsche, if it was involved in any type of a chase with this black Escalade, which is something that Capricorn Clark claimed happened when she was on the stand yesterday. And he said no, he didn't see any Porsche, let alone Kid Cudi's. So that was kind of interesting. Next on the stand is an LAPD fire inspector named Lance Jimenez. Now, he, of course, responded to the 2012 car fire Molotov cocktail in Kid Cudi's car. This was a few months later after the break-in. He said that when he first got there, the top of the car's canvas was slashed. It was charred. Inside, the leather seats were melted. He saw a bottle with gasoline in it, a soaked handkerchief. He saw a lighter a few feet away. He also said the car was parked all the way up toward the garage. Could have really burned the whole house down if the bottle had exploded when it was thrown into the car, but it didn't. He said there was another car in the driveway as well that was untouched, and that you couldn't see these cars from the street. They were really hidden and tucked away, and that he felt this was definitely a targeted attack and not just something random passerby doing it. He then had these items, the bottle, the handkerchief, the lighter, tested. DNA was found on the bottle only, and it was female DNA from a contributor to the trial, but he does not say who. Very interesting. He also follows up by saying he is not a DNA expert, but he did find female DNA. Wow. Then, Officer Jimenez drops this bomb on the courtroom. While he was doing his fire investigation, he found out that in 2011, when the police were investigating Cudi's home for the burglary or the break-in, 2 fingerprints were found on the front door, but the fingerprint cards from the LAPD were destroyed. Immediately, the defense objects. Objection! They call this claim outrageous. The judge has to tell the jury to disregard this. Don't pay attention to what he just said. And this leads the defense to ask for a mistrial. For those of you that maybe don't know, a mistrial would mean that the entire trial would be thrown out, stopped, over, because there was a mistake or an error or something terrible that happened. The defense tried to say that during jury selection, there were some jurors that felt that Diddy could buy his way out of any type of situation. So when jurors are selected for a trial, they're asked tons of questions, and they must have been asked a question that had to do something with this. And so because jurors were asked this question, and some of them felt like, yes, Diddy can buy himself out of any situation, the defense was trying to say that the prosecution was specifically asking questions and planting seeds that would feed into this type of thought process, i.e., when you have the LA fire inspector saying that fingerprints have been destroyed. They just felt like this whole thing is feeding into those conspiratory beliefs, and they want a mistrial. But the judge said no. The judge said, just strike it from the record. Jurors disregard the claim. And on we go with this trial. Nice try, defense. I'm not surprised if they don't try to do this again later on in the trial. Sorry, I had to move to my phone charger. So the defense tries to poke holes into Officer Jimenez's story after this. They say things like, why did you call Capricorn Clark regarding this investigation? Jimenez shuts that down and says, well, I didn't even speak to Capricorn Clark. It was her brother who answered the phone and told me she doesn't want to talk to you. She doesn't want anything to do with this. Jimenez also says that he tried to get in touch with Cassie during his investigation, but only was able to get a hold of her father, who is also a fireman, oddly enough. Defense asked about a black glove that was found in the back of Kid Cudi's car. And Jimenez said, well, I didn't collect that as evidence because I did ask Kid Cudi about the black glove, and he said it was his and that he wore it while he drove. Today's definitely going to be a part 2 day because coming up on the stand next is somebody named Deontay Nash, and he used to be Cassie's stylist, clothes, hair, makeup, all of that, but also very close friend, even to this day. And he had to be subpoenaed to testify in court today because he did not want to do it, and he's got a lot to say. So part 2, here we come.
On day 8 of the Diddy sex trafficking trial, Sean Combs' former personal assistant testified about prepping hotel rooms for his boss with drugs, Astroglide, and liquor. Here's some of that testimony.
When did you stop working for Combs Enterprises?
Diddy trial, day 10. This is the recap after the lunch break. If you missed this morning's recap, it's on my page. Back on the stand is Capricorn Clark. She talked about how Cassie had talent, but she definitely wasn't a Mariah Carey or a Whitney Houston. She discussed that in 2016, she thought that drug use took a toll on Cassie's career.
There are so many baseless rumors swirling about the Diddy trial, so let's clear up some misinformation. Starting with Steve Harvey. His name kept coming up because old clips have began resurfacing and circulating about him talking about baby oil. And I will say, he talked about baby oil quite a lot.
It's just baby oil. All right. Praise the Lord, baby oil.
But his name has never been mentioned in court or in connection to this case. And there's no evidence backing that he was in any sort of relationship with Diddy. Now, some of the speculation has been fueled by the fact that his daughter, Lori Harvey, was connected to Diddy. The two were pictured together and rumored to be dating. But despite pictures showing the families vacationing together, nothing further has been confirmed. A scandalous audio of Meek Mill and Will Smith played in court.
Graphic, explicit tapes involving Diddy, Will Smith, and Meek Mill.
No such audio was played in court. To my knowledge, there was only one audio played aloud in court, and it was of Cassie. I promise you, if there's any celebrity in connection to this case that is exposed, it will be front page news. But no celebrity, Meek Mill, Will Smith, or otherwise, has been connected to this case in a sexual way. Speaking of that, the next one is Lauren London and the Freakoffs. Lauren's name came up once in court, and that's because Diddy reached out to her when he and Cassie broke up and he was trying to get a hold of Cassie. And that's it. She has not been brought up again or in any other way. In fact, as of right now, there is no indication that she'll be called as a witness. Now, things can change, and I promise you, as soon as they do, I will let you know. There are so many baseless rumors swirling about the Diddy trial.
Y'all subscribe and hit the like button.
Diddy afternoon update. We are on day 11, and I'm very sorry for the late update, but we finished the direct testimony of the witness, Deontay Nash, the celebrity stylist who was very close with Cassie, and then we started on the cross-examination, which was done by Xavier Donaldson. And his testimony was a lot. It was a lot about the violence that Cassie experienced at the hands of Diddy, and also the violence that Deontay himself experienced at the hands of Diddy, which was shocking, but a lot of what we've already heard before, if that makes sense. So he spoke about the incident, Deontay, that Cassie also spoke about, where Deontay, Mia, and Cassie were at her LA apartment after going out for a little bit during the day. Maybe there was some day drinking. I'm not certain, but they went back to Cassie's apartment, the three of them. And according to Deontay, they were helping her pack for this Canadian music festival. And, you know, he said that, but he also said Cassie was sleeping on the couch, which Cassie testified as well during her direct. But Diddy shows up at the door. Deontay lets him in. He's irate. And he says something like, you know, I told that B to call me. And that's when he kind of rips Cassie off the couch by her hair and starts beating her. And Deontay said that he jumped on Diddy's back. You know, Diddy threw him off. And then Mia jumped on his back, threw her off. And that's when he started beating Cassie again until her temple hit the side of the bed frame and started gushing blood. Then he said that Diddy got a little nervous. Deontay went to get towels. He said that he was going to call 911, or he started to call 911, but he stopped. He said someone told him to stop, and he doesn't remember who, but he hung up. And then that's when Diddy said that D-Rock should take Cassie to a plastic surgeon. He testified about another time he and Cassie were cooking at her apartment. This is 2013 or 2014. They were in LA. Sorry, I ate something and I feel like it's coming out my teeth. He said that Diddy showed up at her house. And again, he just said, I want to talk to Cassie. And then he grabbed Cassie and it said by her hair and by her shirt. For whatever reason, he was mad at her. I don't know the exact reason, but he grabbed her by the hair and by the shirt. And he said, get the hell out of my house, or get the F out of my house, to Cassie after this argument. And then he did the same thing to Deontay, but Deontay said he kind of popped him in the head a little bit and said, you know, get out of my house, before pushing him out. Now, Deontay said when he did this, Cassie was kind of still in the house, but like by the door. So Deontay said he left the apartment. He goes to the valet to get his car, but he sees Diddy's security there. And again, I don't know what this fight is about. He didn't say what the fight was about. It was just they were cooking and Diddy showed up at the house angry at Cassie. And again, I'm sorry if that sounds confusing. That's all that we know. So he said he gets down to the valet and Diddy's security is there. And he said they kind of blocked him. And he said that then Diddy and Cassie came down and that Cassie was crying. And she got into his car, Deontay's car, and then Diddy comes up and starts berating them, calling them broke asses, and then they drive off. And then Cassie gets a call from Diddy, and he says to pull over, so they do. And then he comes up to her car window, I guess, or, you know, on the passenger side, and he starts making threats to her, you know, saying that he was going to release the sex tapes to her parents' work. He was going to get her parents fired. Her brother is a bitch, and literally, I wrote all this down, and that Diddy, is the only one who protects her. So they drive to Deontay Nash's house. Cassie is crying, and he actually said that he said to Cassie, who cares? Let him release these tapes. He's on them too. And Cassie said to him, actually, he's not on them. Another man is on them. I'm having sex with someone else. So, yeah, that's what's going on. And then he said that Cassie told him that, you know, she didn't want to do it, but she was doing it for Diddy. Now they get to his house, or no, I'm sorry. They're on the way to his house, but then he says it's going to be safer for Cassie just to get a taxi and go somewhere else to a hotel. So he drops her off on Sunset Boulevard. He goes to his house. And he talks about how Diddy shows up at his house and starts looking for Cassie everywhere. And he actually said that Diddy looked in the oven. He's like, I don't know why he did that. But as a side note, he was a very sassy, kind of funny witness. He said things like that. Like, Diddy looked in the oven. I don't know why he did that. But then finally, he said that Diddy took his phone and his keys. And then Cassie called Deontay Nash's phone from the hotel she was at. And it was the La Montrose Hotel. And so, you know, she called and he answered and he's like, oh, that's where she is. So let's go there. So they go to La Montrose Hotel. And according to Deontay Nash, the front desk told them where Cassie's room was. And Diddy said, go get her, like, you know, thinking she'll come with him. And he said, give me my phone back. Deontay said this to Diddy. So he gets his phone back and he goes upstairs. They find Cassie. And I believe, yes, D-Rock was with him at the time, and Cassie jumped when they opened the door or walked in, and they said, Diddy's looking for you. Sorry, Diddy's looking for you. And according to Deontay Nash, she basically said she'd rather jump off the balcony type of thing. He said she went to the balcony and said she was going to go over. So however you want to interpret that. And I guess one of the security guards said, no, we'll take you out of the side. Sorry if you heard my children. And so they, Deontay said, Cassie goes with the security guard. He goes downstairs, tells Diddy that, she must have gone home, didn't see her. So Deontay says that when he leaves, Diddy's all mad or whatever, but he went to a hotel because he didn't feel safe going home that night. So he said he went home the next day and his backpack was stolen. And he had $1,000 cash, an iPad, his ID. And he said that he kept cash for hotels, so, just in case, and in case for Cassie, so they wouldn't have to use their names. He talked about, seeing bruises on Cassie. Definitely in 2016, she was getting ready for the Perfect Match premiere, and he FaceTimed with her, saw the eye bruise, or the black eye from the Intercontinental. And there was some talk about her drug use, about her 29th birthday, about her not wanting to do a freak off and him kind of witnessing this. He talked about Diddy, at one point Diddy had threatened him and said, I don't want you going out because if you go out, she wants to go out too. Talking about Cassie, there was this one time they went to a gay bar with Rita Ora, they actually mentioned. And so he talked about another time on a movie set, Cassie was doing her thing, or not a movie set, I'm sorry, a music video set, and Diddy cornered him outside and threw him up against a car and said, I told you, don't go out with her, because I guess they went out the night before or something like that. So, yes, her birthday, she didn't want to do an FO. He witnessed an escort leaving their hotel room in Vegas one night. They were on the same floor. And he said also during his direct that he doesn't hate Diddy, and he actually texted with him, after he left in 2018. And he stopped styling Diddy and Cassie when Cassie and Diddy broke up. And during the cross, there was kind of a lot going on with that, but I was wondering where it was going, so that's why I guess I'll be brief with some of these notes, and we'll finish it tomorrow, so maybe I'll have a little more context. But Xavier Donaldson talked about how he didn't want to have these meetings with the government, and he said, are you sure you had your lawyer with you? Are you sure you're not planning to sue Diddy or make a demand for any money? And he said, no, I just had my lawyers with me for that meeting and for this case, because I just don't do federal court. And he said, okay, are you sure? He showed up some transcripts saying, are you sure you are not going to sue him? And he said, I'm sure. Deontay Nash also talked about Cassie's music a lot, how Diddy would threaten not to record or to release her songs, how he didn't put her mixtape out for sale. And Donaldson was kind of like, you know a lot about music, but you're a stylist. How did you know all of this? He basically said that, Diddy gave you your start, didn't he? You were a celebrity stylist.
Here's what happened on day 11 of the Diddy trial. LAPD officer Chris Ignacio responded to Kid Cudi's home after the break-in. A black Escalade registered to Bad Boy Records was parked outside. It took off when he arrived, and it came back 15 to 20 minutes later. The officer said he didn't pursue the SUV because no crime had been committed. The door was unlocked, and Ignacio entered the home. No one was there, and when Kid Cudi eventually came back, he filed a trespassing report. Nothing was stolen from the home, and Diddy wasn't charged. LAFD investigator Lance Jimenez investigated the Molotov cocktail that destroyed Kid Cudi's Porsche. The bottle tested for female DNA. Importantly, going back to the break-in, Jimenez testified that LAPD collected 2 prints from the glass door of Kid Cudi's home. Jimenez wanted to compare those prints to the evidence in the arson case, but the fingerprint card was destroyed. The defense moved for a mistrial, arguing that the prosecution was improperly suggesting that Diddy was somehow responsible for the destruction of the fingerprint evidence. The judge struck the testimony and told the jurors to disregard it, but he denied the mistrial motion. Jimenez testified that he tried to contact Capricorn Clark and Cassie during his investigation, but they wouldn't cooperate. Clark's brother told him to stop calling, and Cassie's father, who was also a fireman, said he would let Cassie know, but Cassie never contacted him. Celebrity stylist Deontay Nash saw Cassie with bruises and a black eye. When Cassie didn't answer her phone one day, Diddy punched and kicked Cassie until she hit her head on a bed frame and started bleeding. Mia, one of Diddy's assistants, was also there. She's another victim who will testify this week, probably tomorrow. This is when Cassie received the gash on her eyebrow and went to a plastic surgeon. Nash also said Cassie didn't want to go to a freak-off after her 29th birthday or have sex with other men, but she did because Diddy wanted her to. The defense unsuccessfully tried to keep this out, arguing that it was hearsay. Nash also helped Cassie hide from Diddy, often at hotels. Nash said Diddy told Cassie he would release sex tapes of her on the internet and send them to her parents' work. This is coercion and extortion for sex trafficking and racketeering, respectively. On cross-examination, Nash admitted that he didn't report the violence and that Diddy helped launch his career. Outside the...
Y'all subscribe and hit the like button.
These attorneys are pissed off, and it has everything to do with what firefighter Lance Jimenez just said on the witness stand. They're currently on a 10-minute break. They removed the jury from the courtroom, and all the attorneys are speaking to the judge, and let me tell you why. So Lance Jimenez had said he responded to Kid Cudi's home in January of 2012, and when they arrived, they had seen exactly what we saw in the images. He said the Porsche was parked close to the garage, and he witnessed the fact that the roof was cut up and the inside of the car was slightly burned. There was a bottle and a very fancy handkerchief that had fallen out of the bottle. In his opinion, the Porsche was targeted because it was in a low-crime, affluent neighborhood and was not easily visible in the street. He also said there was another car parked in the driveway at the time that was not harmed. And he says, while yes, it was severely damaged, it's not the kind of catastrophic damage he normally sees from a Molotov cocktail. He testified that there was a disposable lighter outside of the car, a bottle on the driver's seat that was filled with gasoline, and a handkerchief that was sitting on the center console. He said the gasoline did not spread throughout the car because the cloth fell out and the bottle didn't shatter. He said had the bomb exploded as intended, the car parked a few feet from the house would have likely spread to the nearby foliage and eventually the home. Now, this is when Diddy's attorneys get really upset. Remember, when Kid Cudi was on the stand, it was Diddy's attorneys that asked him if he knew there was DNA found on the bottle and that it belonged to a female. Now, the prosecution was upset that that had come up, but they said, okay, you want to play? We'll talk about the DNA. They asked Lance Jimenez, the partial DNA profile wasn't consistent with a female contributor. He responds saying, I was told that. The prosecutor says, do you know what it means? He says, no. The prosecutor then says, what happened to the print cards? And he responds saying they were destroyed in 2012. On whose orders? Someone in LAPD. Not you or anyone on your team. And Diddy's attorney says, I'm going to object to all of this. Can we have a sidebar? Obviously, the prosecution's trying to paint the picture that Diddy has someone on the inside of LAPD working for him because he's that powerful. Now, CNN gave more information about this exchange. So, you know, this happened in January of 2012, and he said that the cards were destroyed by an LAPD officer in August of 2012. He said he collected a card with 2 prints to compare to anything retrieved from the arson incident. That print card was kept in evidence from the arson case and destroyed by an LAPD officer in August of 2012, and he testified that he typically has to sign off on the destruction of any evidence as submitted as a lead investigator. And Mark Agnifilo said this line of questioning is outrageous. They are suggesting to this jury that someone in this courtroom had something to do with the improper and suspicious destruction of these fingerprints. And the jury was just let back in, and it looks like the judge agreed with Diddy's side, saying that they need to disregard the fingerprint card's testimony. Investigator Lance Jimenez is still on the stand. They haven't started
Hey guys, the first witness on the stand today was Christopher.
Now let me get it straight. So this case ended today? You mean to tell me there was almost going to be a mistrial today in court? What? Week 3, y'all. Day 11. Let's get into it. Diddy trial. So first of all was an officer from the LAPD.
Today, the defense was working for that money child. They declared, they filed a motion for a mistrial after a testimony, and the judge said, hell no. We're just going to tell the jury, strike it from your mind. Just forget that even came out. It ain't even happened for real. During testimony, Lance Jimenez from the arson department, he's an arson investigator for the LA Fire Department, stated that, first of all, he was talking about the Kid Cudi situation. This Kid Cudi situation is a very important part because it talks about arson. That's part of the racketeering situation. And so he was stating that during the Kid Cudi debacle and when his car caught on fire, that there was fingerprints that were picked up. However, the actual, if I'm not mistaken, fingerprint card or whatever, the card that has the DNA on it or whatever, was destroyed. So when the government, he's the government's witness. So when the government was asking him, well, who, destroyed it? Is this proper protocol? He was saying someone at the LAPD destroyed it, and no, this is not proper protocol. Mark Agnifilo said, objection. It was, basically saying, what the hell is going on? What the hell is going on? Because why are we even having this line of questioning? The problem with that, according to the defense, is they felt as though the government, I like to call them Little Miss House on Prairies, had, they were trying to plant in the jury's mind that Diddy paid someone to get rid of these fingerprints. This is important because during jury selection, there were several potential jurors who stated that Diddy had enough money to buy himself out of this situation. So while that may be a common theme, right? Even if the jurors on that, who are sitting on the bench now, may not think that, or sitting in the jury box now may not have said it, what if they are thinking it? Because that was a theme within the jury selection, right? Two things definitely are true. Everybody named Mama on that jury saw the video of him beating Cassie. And then a lot of people stated that they thought Diddy had enough money to buy himself out of the situation. So when you have a witness who, let's say the government wasn't even going that way, but the fact that it could be interpreted that way, that was the problem. So Shapiro basically accused, Diddy had 10 lawyers. Mark Agnifilo is the head lawyer. Shapiro and her husband, now, her husband just joined the team. Anyway, Shapiro, she's short, got curly hair, from Brooklyn, and it's so funny because when you see her in the courtroom, and you can tell when she's pissed, because her hair just be doing like this, and her hair be shaking, and she's so small, but she got a big bark. She's very aggressive. She was like, this is misconduct from the prosecution. Oh my God, what did she say? She said that the prosecutors are trying to plant the idea that these jurors, that Mr. Combs had something to do with the destruction of these fingerprints. So while the judge did agree that line of questioning should not have happened, and he instructed the jury to just act like they didn't hear it, he didn't grant the mistrial. He just told them to just strike that from the record, whatever, so on and so forth. So that's what happened with the mistrial, with the filing the motion of mistrial, and it not being granted, it ultimately being denied. And then there was Christopher, he's an LAPD officer, and he responded to the 2011 break-in. Remember, there were two instances that happened at Kid Cudi's home. One, a break-in where they destroyed gifts, Chanel bags, and Christmas gifts and stuff like that, and they put the dog in the house, well, in the bathroom, and Kid Cudi normally let the dog run free, and the dog was skittish and scared after that incident. And then two, you have the Porsche that was set ablaze. So for the break-in, Christopher was the LAPD officer that responded, and he stated that he saw the black Escalade that Capricorn Clark testified to getting into. Diddy was in the back. She was on the right side. Diddy was in the back side, had his gun on his lap, and they were at Kid Cudi's house, and she called Lauren London to let her know where she was in case something happened to her. So that's all this night. This is all about this night or that night. So he was saying that, remember yesterday I told y'all Capricorn Clark testified that once they saw the police, they kind of they were following Kid Cudi, lost him, and then they saw the police, so they just kept on going. Well, Christopher stated that I can't remember his last name, stated that he remembered the license plate. So he saw the Escalade drive off, he saw the license plate, and he memorized it. And when he ran it, he said it came back as Bad Boy Productions. And he didn't arrest him at the time because he wasn't sure if a crime even occurred. But that's kind of odd, right? If he wasn't sure that a crime even occurred, you just see a car, a vehicle driving down the street, you just automatically remember their license plate, you write it down and run it for the hell of it, even though you don't know if a crime has been committed. So I thought that was interesting. That's pretty much it. That's pretty much all that happened today. I mean, I have another video, the first video, where I talk about Deontay Nash's testimony, which is Cassie's friend, and the cross-examination for him will begin in the morning. They didn't finish today. I think a lot of people may be like, oh, the mistrial got denied, so another L for Diddy. See, not necessarily, because the testimony was struck. Like, the jury is not supposed to remember that when they go into the deliberation room. After this is over, I know some of them gonna probably talk and testify, but I really want to know whoever they talk to. I want them to ask these people, when you are instructed not to remember something or to act like you didn't hear it, how the hell do you do that? Because once you ring that bell, you can't unring it. They can't unhear this. Come on. And I really I'm going to do some research to see if there's been any studies on this. So, anywho, I'm Lajanae. This is Crazy Crime.
P. Diddy trial, day 11. Court is literally about to...
So obviously, you guys, we are at day 11 of the...
Diddy trial, day 11, Deontay Nash.
The Diddy trial had a chance at ending today. It's Jacob Wasserman with TMZ. I'm just leaving the courthouse right now, and everyone in the courtroom was stunned today when Diddy's team asked the judge for a mistrial. This is all because they believed that the prosecutors were asking questions to lead jurors with the belief that Diddy could somehow get his way out of crimes unfairly. One of the big topics today was the firebombing of Kid Cudi's car. We heard from lead arson investigator who talked all about the DNA and the fingerprints that were collected on the scene. And when prosecutors were asking him questions, two of them included, have any of the fingerprints been destroyed? And if so, who authorized the destruction? The investigator said that some of the fingerprint evidence was destroyed, and that was all ordered by an LAPD officer, which in his experience wasn't typical. Now, this got Diddy's lawyers absolutely furious because they argued that the line of questioning would imply that Diddy could buy his way out of trouble. Diddy's lawyer argued that the prosecutors were trying to plant the idea to the jurors that Diddy ordered the destruction of fingerprints. The judge basically said no way to a mistrial, but told the jurors to ignore all questions about lost fingerprints.
Sean Diddy Combs is in federal court as his trial continued into day 11, and Diddy faces allegations, including sex trafficking, racketeering, and obstruction of justice. Here's what we know, no fluff, just facts. The testimony centered around the 2012 incident where rapper Kid Cudi's car was allegedly firebombed. An arson expert said it involved a Molotov cocktail. A police officer also spoke about a 2011 break-in at Cudi's home, which allegedly involved Combs. Former assistant Capricorn Clark testified under oath that Combs once pointed a gun at her. She claimed it happened after he found out about Cassie Ventura's connection to Kid Cudi. Clark said Diddy forced into her car to confront Cudi and later allegedly assaulted Cassie. She described the environment around Combs as controlling and fearful. You see, the defense pushed back. They asked for a mistrial, saying prosecutors unfairly introduced evidence about destroyed fingerprints. The judge denied the request, but told the jury to disregard that specific testimony. Another woman known only as Mia is expected to testify, and she's believed to have worked closely with Combs and may speak to additional claims of abuse. Diddy's legal team maintained.
These attorneys are pissed off, and it has everything to do with what firefighter Lance Jimenez just said on the witness stand.
Here is your update to the P. Diddy trial, day 11, May 28th. Today's crazy. Wild. First off, we start out the day with an LAPD officer on the stand by the name of Christopher Ignacio. He responded to the 2011 call that Kid Cudi made, claiming that someone just broke into his home. That when he got there, he saw a black Escalade with tinted windows just speeding away as he got to the house. He was able to get the plates off of that car, and guess what? The plate registered back to Bad Boy Records. Oh, it's a pretty big blow there. I think we all know that this whole story adds up at this point. He went inside the home. He did see the presents unwrapped and wrapped on the counter. Everything else that was said corroborated with what the police officer saw. He said that when Cudi came to the home and met him there, he was very flustered, very upset. But he never made any formal accusations. He never named anyone and said, I think this is who did this, or anything like that. He just kind of let the police do their investigation. Then the defense questioned Officer Ignacio, and they asked him if he was told anything about a gun, about Diddy potentially having a gun. He said no, he doesn't remember being told anything about a gun, nor did he write anything about that in his report. In my opinion, why would he be told about a gun? What? The defense also asked him if he saw Kid Cudi's Porsche, if it was involved in any type of a chase with this black Escalade, which is something that Capricorn Clark claimed happened when she was on the stand yesterday. And he said no, he didn't see any Porsche, let alone Kid Cudi's. So that was kind of interesting. Next on the stand is an LAPD fire inspector named Lance Jimenez. Now, he, of course, responded to the 2012 car fire Molotov cocktail in Kid Cudi's car. This was a few months later after the break-in. He said that when he first got there, the top of the car's canvas was slashed. It was charred. Inside, the leather seats were melted. He saw a bottle with gasoline in it, a soaked handkerchief. He saw a lighter a few feet away. He also said the car was parked all the way up toward the garage. Could have really burned the whole house down if the bottle had exploded when it was thrown into the car, but it didn't. He said there was another car in the driveway as well that was untouched, and that you couldn't see these cars from the street. They were really hidden and tucked away, and that he felt this was definitely a targeted attack and not just something random passerby doing it. He then had these items, the bottle, the handkerchief, the lighter, tested. DNA was found on the bottle only, and it was female DNA from a contributor to the trial, but he does not say who. Very interesting. He also follows up by saying he is not a DNA expert, but he did find female DNA. Wow. Then Officer Jimenez drops this bomb on the courtroom. While he was doing his fire investigation, he found out that in 2011, when the police were investigating Cudi's home for the burglary or the break-in, 2 fingerprints were found on the front door, but The fingerprint cards from the LAPD were destroyed. Immediately, the defense objects. Objection! They call this claim outrageous. The judge has to tell the jury to disregard this. Don't pay attention to what he just said. And this leads the defense to ask for a mistrial. For those of you that maybe don't know, a mistrial would mean that the entire trial would be thrown out, stopped, over. Because there was a mistake or an error or something terrible that happened. The defense tried to say that during jury selection, there were some jurors that felt that Diddy could buy his way out of any type of situation. So when jurors are selected for a trial, they're asked tons of questions, and they must have been asked a question that had to do something with this. And so because jurors were asked this question, and some of them felt like, yes, Diddy can buy himself out of any situation, the defense was trying to say that the prosecution was specifically asking questions and planting seeds that would feed into this type of thought process, i.e., when you have the LA fire inspector saying that fingerprints have been destroyed. They just felt like this whole thing is feeding into those conspiratory beliefs, and they want a mistrial. But the judge said no. The judge said, just strike it from the record. Jurors disregard the claim. And on we go with this trial. Nice try, defense. I'm not surprised if they don't try to do this again later on in the trial. Sorry, I had to move to my phone charger. So the defense tries to poke holes into Officer Jimenez's story after this. They say things like, why did you call Capricorn Clark regarding this investigation? Jimenez shuts that down and says, well, I didn't even speak to Capricorn Clark. It was her brother who answered the phone and told me she doesn't want to talk to you. She doesn't want anything to do with this. Jimenez also says that he tried to get in touch with Cassie during his investigation, but only was able to get a hold of her father, who was also a fireman, oddly enough. Defense asked about a black glove that was found in the back of Kid Cudi's car. And Jimenez said, well, I didn't collect that as evidence because I did ask Kid Cudi about the black glove, and he said it was his and that he wore it while he drove. Today's definitely going to be a part 2 day because coming up on the stand next...
Y'all subscribe and hit the like button.
What's up, y'all? Got another update. I think this is update 11. This would be everything that happened last Thursday and then Tuesday because of the Memorial Day weekend. There's also no trial on.
An LAFD arson investigator was testifying at the show.
Record executive Jimmy Iovine, Rihanna, actress Lauren London, and Uptown.
Welcome back for part 11. If you cannot tell by the title already, yes, I'm going to be going over the Diddy case. I did start from the beginning, so if you have not watched any of my previous videos, please go back and watch them. Also, do not forget to follow me to stay up to date on what's going on with this case, and also engage with this video. Give me your opinion on what you think. And yes, I want to go on record and say I am not an attorney. I'm not a paralegal. I do not work for the court system or the court of law of any kind, in any capacity. This is just facts that I am stating from what I am reading. Let's get into it. So I left my previous video just kind of explaining and going over the indictment a little bit and what they're saying now. This part is getting into about him forfeiting his assets and things of that nature. So basically any money, houses, cars, anything that they feel like that he was able to get from funds that was earned, funds that was earned from any of the criminal activity that they are alleging came from the crime that he was doing, that they're stating that he that they are requiring him to forfeit of these assets. So
And it's also stating that any assets, I guess, if anything that has been transferred to someone else's name, or that he's no longer, in charge of, or anything like that, they are okay. So forfeiture allegations. So yeah, so what they are stating is that anything acquired or maintained, all interests and securities, claims against the property, contractual rights, like any of that stuff, enterprise named as a result.
She said that when Diddy found out that she previously had worked for Death Row Records, he
Y'all hit that like and subscribe button.
The main thing I always hear is, where is Farnsworth Bentley? And now Farnsworth Bentley has been named in a lawsuit with Diddy. Now, it's very important to note during this time that a civil lawsuit has absolutely nothing to do with Diddy's criminal case, but Diddy and Farnsworth Bentley have just been sued. A man named Randy Pittman is suing Diddy and Derek Watson, aka Farnsworth Bentley. He is suing, alleging SA and assault. He's also alleging intentional infliction of emotional distress and gross negligence. So let's get into his allegations. He is alleging on May 23rd of 2003, he was performing his duties as a talent scout for Options Talent at Lenox Square Mall in Atlanta, Georgia. He says at that time, a Sean John fashion show was being held at the mall. He claims that he did not work for Sean John and he was not affiliated with the fashion show, and his presence at this event was solely in his capacity as a talent scout for Options Talent. He alleges that during this event, he was approached by Farnsworth Bentley, who inquired about his occupation and asked if he knew any women who would be interested in attending an after party hosted by Sean John Combs. He claimed that Farnsworth Bentley offered him an entry to the party on the condition that he bring female guests along, and he agreed that he would attempt to bring some guests to the event. He claimed that following the fashion show, he was introduced to Sean Combs, who provided him with the event credentials and instructed him to act if he was a part of the Sean John team, including by taking photographs of Combs during the event. He then claimed that Diddy and Farnsworth Bentley directed two young females who were present at the event to a post-event interview at Rich's department store and then head to a hotel party. And this man is claiming that these females were only 13 and 14 years old, and they were transported to the hotel by members of Combs' entourage, where a party was held and where the essay occurred. He claims that once they got to this hotel, Diddy and Farnsworth Bentley provided him and the two females with alcohol and pills described as E, and coerced them into non-consensual acts through intoxication, manipulation, and threats of violence. He goes on to allege that him and the females were subject to SA, battery, and other unlawful acts by Diddy and Farnsworth Bentley during the duration of the party. And that's the end of his allegations in his lawsuit. But y'all been asking, where is Farnsworth Bentley? And
Thank y'all for watching. Hit the like and subscribe button to stay updated with this Diddy trial. See y'all later tonight.